Hi, friends. Hope you are doing well. Welcome to my podcast, One in a Billion. Today, I have the privilege to have Dr. Larry Davies. Larry is from US and he went to high school in 1979 and he went to do BA in English at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. And after his college, he had a brief stint as a teacher at Kenya, and he was a headmaster. And from there, he went to Seoul, South Korea, and Japan. And he spent a little bit of time at Mexico, and again went back to Japan, and again came back to US, where he spent some time at St. Thomas University. And in 2012, he moved to Middle East and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Larry is an executive coach, balance coach, and an educational consultant. He has a doctoral degree in educational leadership. Presently, Larry lives in Abu Dhabi, and it is indeed a privilege and honor, Dr. Larry Davis, in our show. Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Satish. It's great to be here.
All right. Let us start this conversation with an interesting quote from one of the great leaders the world has ever produced, Nelson Mandela. There is no passion to be found playing small in settling for a life that is less than the one you're capable of living. I see Larry as a person who has spent quite a bit of time, almost 3 decades, I'm not sure if more than 3 decades. And here he is doing everything that he can for the world. So, Larry, what is driving you?
What drives me? I know deep down that I'm an optimist more than anything. I believe that people are good, although obviously there's plenty of examples of evil and bad things that go on, because some people want to see the world burn, and that has to be taken into account. But I know I'm definitely someone who wants to see the best in people and wants to support the success of everybody that I can.
I love what you shared there, Larry. Larry, can you share a little bit about your present work?
Sure. So first of all, you got one thing wrong. I lived in Abu Dhabi for 8 years, but just this past March of 2023, I did move to Dubai. I did that for some reasons because I work at a local college. And so I've been an academic my whole life. As you noted, I started out my teaching career in Kenya. So I picked up a little Swahili there and a very different way of looking at the world. And of course, I moved through a lot of things. In Japan, I was an associate professor of communication studies. Then I went back to the US and I became a kind of a technical and academic support person for professors. I kind of got tired of teaching, but not teacher training and teacher support. So I did that for two different higher education institutions in South Florida in the US. Then I took the job that I liked in Saudi Arabia, where I was managing about 150 teachers at 23 different schools. It was a very big project, and I got to see that country a lot. It was really interesting. That brought me here to United Arab Emirates, where I'm pretty much doing similar things of supporting teachers to be better teachers. I'm very strong advocate of education, especially teachers and supporting teachers so they can do what they do best, which is change minds and grow people's minds. So I know that as a teacher, I've had a very long impact. And I know that as a teacher trainer, that's kind of exponential because I'm helping other teachers to inspire their students in a lot of different ways.
All right. I want to take a moment here to applaud and appreciate the great work that you're doing, Larry.
Thank you.
So, after your college, what made you to move to Kenya and various other countries that you've traveled?
Okay, so I'm going to take a little side trip. Just a second. So tomorrow is, oh no, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Anyway, I thought tomorrow was April 11th. It's January 11th. I was thinking April 11th because that's my mother's birthday. So when I was young, my parents divorced, and my mom in the 1960s in the US had 4 children. I was the youngest. So it was very hard for her economically for pretty much her whole life. But when I was 19 years old, one day she came to me, she gave me $1,000 and she said, go travel to Europe. And when I think of that story, I shake my fist at my mom saying, why did you do this? Because I cannot stop traveling.
Right.
You know, we all grow up in a bubble. So I grew up in this American suburban, I grew up in Chicago, but not the city of Chicago, just north of Chicago. So, you know, it was a little bubble, and I wanted to get out of the US to see the world. So I was able to join the US Peace Corps, which is a kind of a US government development organization. It's volunteer. So I went to volunteer 2 years, and I was a teacher there, and I became headmaster after 2 months because the headmaster went to do some more training somewhere. But okay, that was great. I was 24 years old and started to learn more about myself and the rest of the world.
That is a very intriguing journey, Larry. Now you've had a very long career in education. And can you share some of your achievements or some of the challenges that you had to go through working in various countries, meeting people of different culture? Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure, I have so many stories. I think that the common thread tends to be the language barrier. So, of course, when I was in Kenya, I was in a very small village and nobody spoke English. Everybody spoke Swahili, except for the other teachers. So if I wanted to speak English, I could speak with the teachers. Everybody else, you know, to get my food daily, to walk around. It was a small village. But, you know, I would sit for hours at a time and talking with a couple of local friends I had made. And that was really good for learning Swahili, but that was still a challenge, and understanding the mindset of, I don't want to say Africans because that's big. Where I was, Kenya has a lot of different tribes. And in the place I was at, there were several tribes together. So even there's a little bit of tribal rivalry, and the thinking is slightly different here and there. And of course, I didn't know that much. I didn't have that much context there. Then when I went to Japan, of course, it's the same thing. I went there as an English teacher. Most Japanese don't speak English, and the Japanese have very good math and science education system and really terrible English language education system. Because you can go to Tokyo today, and it's really hard to find an English speaker there. So I had that big language barrier there, but also I met a woman there and I got married, and I was married for over 30 years. I'm in the process. I separated from her finally. But when I was there, she was kind of like my translator to deal with administrative and other things. But again, understanding the mindset of the Japanese and some of those concepts, that was a big challenge. But again, when you start to understand these things, whether it's in an African country or in Japan or other, I did spend a month in South Korea, as you mentioned, trying to understand the mindset is usually a lifetime thing. So I can say, all right, I was in Japan 13 years and I learned a lot and I understood a lot, but I also know there's a lot that I did not learn and I did not understand. Same as in Kenya and same as even when I go back to the US, it's the same thing. Even though I was raised American, trying to understand the differences in those mindsets can be challenging. Then, of course, I started off in Saudi Arabia, so I'm learning the Arab mindset. And of course, that was interesting because I worked a lot with the department heads of the English departments, and I was the country director. So I was the top leader of that project, and I learned all about leadership in just 2 short years, and that was tough. And by the time I was in Saudi, okay, I knew how to learn culture a little bit better and understand it a little bit more. Because by that time I had lived, even when I lived in the US, the people that I worked with were not all Americans. In Florida, there were people from the Caribbean islands. There's like 20 little island countries there. Right. And there are a lot of people from like Jamaica and South America, like Colombia, Peru, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay. So all of these people were in South Florida, and Cuba, of course. There's a lot of Cubans. So now, even though I was in the US and South Florida, I learned about Latin America. And that's a different mindset and a different way of thinking. Right. So, I've done that. I've done it a lot. And so these days now, when I moved to Abu Dhabi first, now in Dubai, I'm also working with a very diverse set of people. You probably know the UAE is about 50% from India. Right. The biggest population. There's a lot of Filipinos here, a lot of workers from Pakistan, Bangladesh, a lot of the Mideast North African countries, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Lebanon, Syria. There's a lot of Syrians and Palestinians. So again, I'm working with another mindset of people, and okay, it's much easier for me now because I've been in so many different contexts in different countries around.
Amazing journey, Larry. I can call yourself a global citizen.
Yeah, well, I like to think so, but I also know still most of my values and the way I see the world, it's still a Western perspective of things. But at least I'm aware of that. A lot of people are not self-aware in that sense.
Right.
And that's something through coaching, especially, that I want people have to understand who they are and where they came from and the bubble that they live in so that they can start to move beyond that.
Larry, you spoke about leadership, you spoke about education, living in various countries, understanding culture. Larry, until recently, I had a corporate job and I decided to quit. And when I came out, I thought I would become a trainer or a speaker, something like a motivational speaker. But then I stumbled upon a concept called coaching, and I didn't know the difference between training and coaching then. And it's only been a couple of months, and I've embarked on this journey of coaching. And within 2 months, I've met this almost 50 incredible folks who are from different parts of the world, and they're changing people's lives and making a positive impact to our world. So, what is the one thing that in the present day world you see that is not right or something that the world needs, and how we can go about addressing this?
Okay, I like this question a lot. Uh, I think the most important thing right now that I don't see enough of is empathy.
Mm,
To be able to um, listen to other people's stories and accept that they're also on a journey, and their
mm,
journey, that everybody's journey is absolutely unique.
mm,
And you need to, another thing I'll say, and again, this is about coaching, is coaching is all about listening to somebody and then
mm.
seeing the questions they have in their head, but it hasn't come out of their mouth yet. So you can ask
Right.
that question for them, and that's going to help them to move forward to wherever they want to move. And that can be hard, especially if you're coaching somebody from a different culture, to really try to listen carefully and figure that out and to get them to move ahead. And you can't, sorry, are we okay there? You can't as
Fine,
a
sir.
you can't as a coach assume anything about your clients, and you have to ask them questions to get more context about
Mm,
who they are and where they are. And the more you ask, the more you see how unique everybody is. And that's a great challenge of coaching, but that's why I love coaching is try it's a for me it's a cultural exploration as a starting point for helping people move to where they need to go, where they want to go, where they need to go.
Larry, I've seen your profile, and I've checked your profile, and you've written a lot of articles um, in your various life experience that you had. And this particular article that you've written has intrigued me, where you speak about lessons from a brutal job loss, and you also speak about only thing you can control is your response. In these days, people, vast majority, focus on what is missing rather than what they do have. And they focus on what is not in their control versus what is in their control. And they focus on the past or the future versus the present. And what's strong is always available to you, and so is what is right. And there is this quote: life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. So, can you share more on this particular brutal job loss that you had?
Sure. First, I want to show you my phone and what I have
Mm,
on my cover, which
mm,
says, "You can't control what's happening. Challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's
mm.
happening. That's where your power is." This is the quote I use. So
That's incredible, man. Yeah.
I read this every day
Mhm.
because it's exactly as you've said. Sorry, can you repeat your question one more time?
Yeah, you've written this article
Uh, about job
about brutal
loss.
job loss, yes. And you spoke
So
about empathy, and can
yeah,
you connect and share the story?
so basically, I was about 50 years old at the time in Florida, and I
Mhm.
had a job that I liked a lot. I was an instructional designer at a college, and in instructional design, you have to think about how students learn. Again, you got to put your brain into the mind of, in this case, students. And again, in Florida, you're talking about students from all of these island countries, from Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Dominica, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Venezuela, and these other countries that I mentioned earlier. So you have to put yourself into their mind. So I really liked that job because I was a teacher and I could help other teachers think about those things. But then what happened was my boss, who was the executive, what was she? She was the executive director,
Mm,
excuse me, of the college. And she decided to retire because she got tired of the politics of the college. So, speaking of the politics of the college, I applied for her job and I did not get it. And because they already knew who they wanted in there, which was kind of a political appointment. And I think that person looked around for all the people with the doctorates and saw them as threats. And within 18 months, myself and my immediate supervisor, the only two people with the doctorates, there was something they call Black Friday, where the HR person comes in and says, we're not renewing your contract. Please empty out your office and we're going to escort you to your car. This is how I lost the first job in my life ever. And it was actually very unexpected because I really loved the job. But I think because I applied for this position, who knows? Who knows why it happened? Anyway, it was a shock, of course. And what happened within a month is I took the job in Saudi Arabia and I didn't really have time to sell anything that I had. And I owned a house, 3-bedroom house with my wife and daughter. My daughter was just entering high school. She was in her first year of high school at the time. And I said to the two of them, bye, I have to go take another job in Saudi Arabia. So I'll send you money and support, but I have to, and I left. And my wife moved from Florida to Chicago, and my daughter finished high school there. And of course, I came back and forth over the next couple of years. I didn't just disappear on them. But the one thing I did was I took everything I owned at the time in that 3-bedroom house and I threw it in the garbage. I threw it away. I gave away what I could and the rest I threw away. So it's not that I lost everything. It was like, okay, this job loss tells me that I need to go in it's time for me to go in a new direction. So I could have gotten really depressed and cried for months and, started drinking or whatever. But basically my first day after losing my job, I was on the internet looking for work. And within a month, I was flying to Saudi Arabia for a new job. So, the lesson that I learned from that and it is basically, life is never going to be fair for anybody. And look at every tragedy as an opportunity, which it was for me at the time. So, of course, it's never there's still plenty of pain there. That's kind of a traumatic event. I'm not denying that it was traumatic. It is. And when you're a coach, you want people to understand we all have trauma of some kind. So you can either live with that trauma, which is going to fade into the past and keep you in the past, or you can do the opposite, as you said. You can worry about the future and be stuck way out there in something that doesn't exist. So I'm not a Zen Buddhist, but the thing I like about Buddhism most is the fact that there's only right now. There is no past.
Yeah, it's only in our head.
There is no future. Time is a cultural construct that every culture has. One of my favorite things in Kenya. Again, I lived in a really remote village on the coast, and there's a big city on the coast of Kenya, Mombasa. And every once in a while, I would go to Mombasa, but it was a 12-hour bus ride. It was really far. Like bus, I couldn't take a plane. There was I didn't have a car. There was no tarmac road. And sometimes in the village, I would say, hey, I want to get the bus to Mombasa. When is it coming? They would say, it is coming soon. So the word soon, where I grew up, means 15 minutes. But in that context in Africa, that meant anywhere from 2 hours to 24 hours.
My God.
And I adjusted to that, just as you have to adjust to, and everything that throws you a curveball, so to speak.
Right.
So this is the way I live my life now. And again, I recently separated from my wife of a long time, and there's pain and trauma there. But am I going to keep my head turned back there, or am I just going to say, here I am today? What do I need to do today to get to what I want? So this is something that I think is very much a part of coaching. A lot of people are stuck in habits that are rooted in trauma in the past or rooted in anxiety in the future. And you just got to get them right here. Like, what do you want right now? What are you working on now that's going to get you what you need? How much time? I don't want to. Well, I use time as an example, but okay, how much time are you devoting every day to getting to where you want to be?
Thanks for sharing this, Larry. Pretty profound. And this brings us to the Japanese quote that I came across in your article, which says, "Fall down 7 times, stand up 8."
Yeah, I can't think of the Japanese stuff. What is it? Yoi Otoshi. I can't remember. No.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yoi Otoshi is a New Year's greeting. Forget that.
Right.
Yeah. So the famous proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8. There's so many nice proverbs too. This is another reason why I like to travel. You learn proverbs from every culture, but they still all have this common truth of, bad things are going to happen in your life. So do you want to live in those moments? And many people choose to live in those moments, and they live in them forever. And okay, but that's definitely not for me. Bad things happen to everybody. It happened to me too. I don't take anything personally anymore. I just have to, move forward, take each day. An hour ago, I was able to watch another sunset in Dubai. And actually, this is bragging a little. I have a nice view of Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world, and the sun sets behind that. So every night, if I want, I can go out and see this beautiful, really beautiful sunset. And just over here to my left is a window where I can watch the sunrise. So I could, in theory, watch the sunrise every day and see the sunset every day. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Right. You're still here. You're alive.
I wake up and I say, "Oh, good. I'm here.
Yep.
I'm still around."
Right.
Some of my friends and family haven't been as lucky. And I know one day that's going to happen to me too. And that's, I'm okay with that. It's part of the cycle.
Right. Let us talk about the organizations that we have and the people who are going for some sort of employment. Despite the technological advancement, mobile phones, AI, and still vast majority of people reporting to work unhappy, and the anxiety levels are going up, various health conditions for these employees. So the world and the employees who are reporting to any kind of work, they need help. And coaching, of course, is there, but how do we make people aware about the coaching techniques and various other avenues that they can reach out and ask for help? So where do we start all these, and how do we take this forward, Larry?
Okay, I'm going to fall back to my safety answer, which is it's always about education. And I think when I grew up, there was not a lot of awareness of mental health. I have an older brother who passed away a few years ago. He had mental health issues his whole life. And they really didn't know what it was about. So it turns out he had a learning disability. He was dyslexic, among other things. But we grew up in a time where there was just not this type of awareness. And I don't want to speak as an expert to primary education systems around the world, but I do know that there are movements where they're talking about things like, I'm trying to think of the word, I'm drawing a blank, to be more self-aware, to be more mindfulness, to be mindful of the world around you and other people and where you are and the atmosphere you're in. And I think there are movements for more mental health awareness being given, education being given to the primary grades from kindergarten, 6-year-old kids up through secondary school. And there are these movements because where I grew up, and as a male, men are not supposed to express emotion. We're supposed to stay strong always, no matter what. And obviously, this attitude is changing for the better, and there is more awareness and there's more education for this. And what I've seen, the place I'm working, part of the benefits are, if I want, I can, I don't know if it's free or not, but I can visit a mental health specialist if I ever want to. It's part of the employment package that I'm in. So I think the smart companies, if they really want to attract good employees, they need to, for me, I'm a big advocate of group coaching. I think that's really important to feel safe to talk about, conflict that exists in the workplace. I see it every day. I've seen it every single day I've worked in higher education. I see this all the time. But again, my attitude now is, I woke up another day. I will do what I can to change minds, but I keep my expectations a little bit low, and that keeps my mind balanced. Because change happens it's a very slow process. And the people who need more help, who want to seek out help right now, there's still not enough, but it's moving in the right direction at least. And more people are able to get that kind of help, and it's not as taboo a subject to talk about. Oh yeah, I visited my therapist the other day because I have these problems of A, B, C, D, and I need to work through them. In 20 years ago, that's not stuff you talk about openly. So at least that's here. We still have a long way to go, but it is coming and it is changing in that way. And it will change if governments put more money into primary education, especially. And that's one of the things that they talk about.
Larry, in one of the articles you wrote about, letting go is the only way to grow. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, that's a story I tell all the time to teachers too. So I learned about something called the Malaysian monkey trap. And for people who don't know the Malaysian monkey trap, I don't know if it's true or not, but the story is a good story. So the story is way back in Malaysia, of course. They had designed a trap to catch monkeys. And it was a large jug with a very thin neck and a bigger mouth. And the neck of the jug was just big enough for the monkey to put their to put their hand in.
Mm-hmm.
So the hunters, it wasn't really hunting, it was very easy to catch monkeys. They would take a banana and put it into the jug, the jar.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the monkeys would smell the banana and they would see it in the jar and they would reach into the jar with their arm and grab the banana.
Mm.
But then that banana made their hand too big and they couldn't pull their hand out of the hole in the top of the jar.
Mm.
So the hunters very simply would walk up to the monkey sitting there with his, I want to show it, sitting there with their hand in the jar, and they would very gently put a net over them.
Mm.
Of course, the reason was the monkeys did not realize that the only thing they needed to do to escape their terrible situation was to let go of the
Right.
banana.
Mm.
So I like that story because it's good. It's good for coaching. It's good for a lot of different things. But it's the whole idea that, again, whatever trauma or pain from the past is there, it's always going to be there. You know, you can't completely get rid of those things. And this is actually a feature of the limbic part of our brain, the old fight or flight fear
Flight response.
part
Right.
of the brain. It's not the this big cortex, whatever it's called up here. I'm not very good at the terminology, but this is our new brain. The old brain is sitting
Right.
back here. So that's the nature of most people's problems is they're stuck in this brain, listening only to this brain and the instinct. So coaching is going to help you. I think coaching helps you find a way to use this part of the brain to learn to creatively address traumatic situations or whatever stress you have in the world. And I especially like what's called appreciative inquiry. You mentioned this a little bit. A lot of people say, "Oh, if I only had this thing, I would be happier. If I had that thing, I could do something better. If I had that thing that I don't have." And with appreciative inquiry, you start with, well, wait a second, what do I have? What superpowers? So this is what I try to work on with coaching. What superpowers do I have right now? What are things that I do really well? What are things that I love to do that I do every day? And this is where you need to get people not thinking about, if I had that thing that I don't have, life would be better. Well, but look at what you already have. You have so many great things inside of you that maybe you haven't thought about using so much. For me, this is when I was first exposed to coaching, I realized, okay, this is actually my best talent because it fits so well after being a teacher and educator my whole life. It's the greatest next step that I could do. So that's when I discovered that power in myself, and I'm very good. I'm good at listening, which is an important coaching skill, and I believe I have strong empathy based on my life experiences in many different cultures and many very different cultures. So that I think is an important thing.
I love what you shared there, Larry. Yeah, it's these days, no matter what you do, it's never enough. And there is this culture of not enoughness and what they call as a grind culture. And vast majority of people, they feel that if they reach their one goal and they want to reach another goal, it's like somebody constantly moving your goalpost. And many people I see that though they're very successful, but they're not happy. how success and happiness are connected, Larry.
Do you know this comedian Jim Carrey?
Yep.
You know, he's kind of a silly guy.
Yeah.
He's a Canadian comedian. I can't give the
Bruce
exact.
Almighty.
Yeah, yeah, that and well, a lot of he's done so many things. My favorite is The Mask, where he puts on that green
Yeah,
mask.
I like that too. Yep.
So he said one day, he said, "It is my wish that everybody on Earth becomes extremely successful, because then they extremely rich and successful, because then they'll know that that's not it."
Mm. I've heard this before. Yes.
So you know, I think generally I'm a happy guy because I try to stay in the present, because that's really that's where the happiness is. So if you an appreciation of this moment and being grateful that you're here at this moment,
Mm.
that's all I can think of. I can't think of anything else. And no matter where I am, I'm there in this moment, and that's a great thing.
Mm.
So you know, people, we get a little bit brainwashed these days with wanting to be better looking, wanting to be younger looking. You know, I shaved this morning, and right in my nose here, I'm getting this really ugly looking lump.
Mm.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting older. That's what happens. You get
Right.
lumps when you get older. Oh well, you know, that's how it is. I'm not 21 years old anymore. So, you know, wow, it's kind of a badge. Hey, this means I've survived this long. I have several good friends who have died within the past 10 years in their, you know, in their 50s and early 60s. And that's very tragic. And I miss them a lot. They were important parts of my life. And I'm sorry they didn't make it this far, but I've made it this far and I have a long way to go. So, what is there not to be grateful for? And I guess the other thing I want to say about that is, remember, even what are the mathematical odds of you and I sitting here having this conversation based on, you know, our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, and you go back generation. We are so lucky to be here on Earth as sentient people. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that one. You know, that really the chance of being born as a baby is
Right.
odds of billions to one. And, you know, so the thing I like to say about that to people, oh, sorry, we're losing our signal again.
I can see you and hear you. Yep.
Okay. I just like to say, you know, we're the winners of the winners of the winners of the winners of the winners, going back 25. I come from 30 generations of winners, because I couldn't be here without my parents. They couldn't be here without their parents. So there's a lot to be happy about, but some people want to live in unhappiness. And yes, there's plenty of unfairness and struggle, but you need to look for the opportunity in that struggle. You need to look for the opportunity of your current situation.
Mm.
And don't wish for things that you don't have. Look at what you have and build on that.
Amazing, amazing, Larry. You spoke about this unfairness. How does one navigate the unfairness, the mistakes that we do, and the curveballs that the society throws at the life throws at you, and the monkey traps? How do you navigate all this?
Okay, so I grew up in the U.S., and in the U.S., when something goes wrong, you need to take your finger and look and point to see whose fault it is. It's never my fault. Somebody else is the result of me, something bad happening to me. It was that person. But now I understand that's not true. Where I am now and what I'm doing now is 100% a result of my decisions in my lifetime. So if you're in a bad spot and you have two bad choices, you still have to make a decision between one of the two bad choices. Although in coaching, a good coach will see that it's not just two bad choices. There's 10 good choices hidden behind those bad choices. But anyway, there are choices, and then you have to make a choice, and that brings you there. So, the reason I decided to move to Dubai, again, I lived in Abu Dhabi 8 years. But one day, one of the deans of the college I was in said, "Larry, what are you doing here? Your colleagues are all in Dubai. Why don't you move to Dubai?" And I kind of did this. I said, "You know what? You're right." And I moved to Dubai. And that was a good choice for me. It was kind of a hidden thing because in less than a year, I have lots of, especially coaching opportunities that come to me. Because, excuse me, I didn't realize that when people are searching for a coach, how do I say this? Several people found me recently by doing a search for coaches in Dubai. They didn't do coaches in Abu Dhabi searches. They did coaches in Dubai. People outside of the country. Someone from South Africa contacted me recently. Someone from Nigeria contacted me recently. Someone from London contacted me recently. I think there was one other. Anyway, these people are contacting me because I'm in Dubai. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that Dubai had this kind of, it's kind of a built-in advertisement all by itself. So I didn't really come to Dubai for that opportunity. I came to make it easier to work with my colleagues, but because of that choice, there's a lot of very fast changes that are happening. Just as I didn't just come to Abu Dhabi very quickly. When I was in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, I went to a conference in Dubai and I said, "Oh, UAE looks like kind of a nice place to live. Maybe I should try that." It's right next to Saudi Arabia, but it seems very different culturally in the thinking. Although I know that that's changed a lot in the last 10 years since I've been here. But anyway, everything that happens to you in your life is a result of the choices you make. And don't look to blame the outside world for its unfairness or whatever. You have to have the resilience to, fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. You have to cultivate that into yourself because otherwise you're not going to see another sunset. And watching sunsets are really beautiful.
Talking about beauty, I'm holding a book in my hand. Hope you can see this. This is Ikigai, and this book has profoundly changed the way I look at the world. And they have this Venn diagram where it says Ikigai is when the integration of what you love, what you are good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And you've written one article on this, Larry. You say Ikigai is not when, and it's a Zen. And having lived in Japan for some time, can you say more about this Ikigai?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me this and you talked about the Zen because I think 4 days ago I met the person who put the word Ikigai inside of those 4 circles. And I had a chat with him for about an hour. I wish I could have recorded it. He's a very interesting guy. Maybe I'll introduce you to him. You should definitely talk with him. But basically, the Venn diagrams you're talking about, this is for coaching. I love those because it's about what you do well, how you can change the world, what you love doing, and what you can get paid for. So it's those 4 circles and the various intersections. And in the middle where they all intersect is not Ikigai. This guy labeled it wrong, but it's kind of something to strive for. The person who put those 4 Venn circles together was, I think, Spanish. I need to do a little more research so I can tell that story a little better. But that's something from about 20 years ago. And about 10 years ago, this guy saw that diagram. He said, okay, let me just put Ikigai here. And suddenly everybody thinks that's Ikigai. And I also thought so. So it's not. But it's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I really like the Venn diagrams, and I try to use those with clients, and I've published a bunch of stuff. But then, sorry, I'm just referring to my notes of the 5 pillars of Ikigai.
Right.
And they're definitely very Japanese. So, and I'm sorry, I can't use the Japanese words because I can't remember them. But one of my favorite things about Japan, for example, is if you break a piece of pottery, like a teapot or a cup, there are craftsmen who will take some gold and fill the cracks in with gold. They'll fill the cracks of the teapot with gold, or the cracks of the cup with gold. Now, again, earlier I talked about understanding mindsets. This one is really difficult to explain, but basically this is one approach that Japanese have in life, is that nothing is perfect and things break, but they can be mended and be more beautiful after they're mended. And again, there's a word for it in Japanese, and sorry, my Japanese is not that good. But this is the whole thinking of things, and it is kind of part of Ikigai. So the actual book, and I will send you the graphic about Ikigai. Ikigai is 5 pillars. And I'm just referring to them on my other screen as notes. So the first pillar is change. I think a lot of people are frustrated because they want big change to happen in a short time. And that's never how change happens. We get older every year, and our body very slowly changes. So this is the same thing that can apply to habits. If you want to be better at something, you need to very slowly practice it and be very patient, but start small. So the example I like to give is, you can only see me kind of chest high. I like to eat, and I'm a little bit too fat, and I really need to lose 30 kilos. But my brain always says, why can't you lose 30 kilos in 1 week? What's wrong with you, Larry? Well, of course I can't lose 30 kilos in 1 week. I have to start eating a little bit less, cut out the snacks, whatever. So any kind of habit change begins with something really small. So this is the first pillar of Ikigai, is every day look to see what you can change, but it needs to be a small thing, and you need to stay patient and do that practice. The next one is the Malaysian monkey trap, releasing yourself. And again, it's accepting your uniqueness and stop comparing yourself to others. So you already mentioned this. There's a lot of stress and anxiety in the world. And it usually comes from saying, well, I want to be rich like that person. I want to be good looking like this person. I want to be better. Maybe a doctor can help me do that. And it's like, just love yourself and be happy with yourself and be content. Then there's harmony and sustainability. which is the third pillar. So the actions you have an impact on other people. This is kind of like mindfulness also, we talked about this earlier. So that whole idea is there. And then one of my favorites, which I already talked about several times, find a daily routine that gives you a moment of joy. So for me, even if I don't see it, thinking about the sunrise and the sunset and watching the sunrise or the sunset, that's my daily moment of joy, which I like. Then the last thing is being in the here and now, focusing on what you're doing right now. And if you can stay focused here and now, you're not going to think about that trauma in the past. You're not going to worry about the future because you're going to love being in the moment. So these are the five pillars of Ikigai, which are quite different from the 4 circles of Ven. And again, I love the circles of Ven, and I will keep using them in coaching because I think they're great, but that's not Ikigai.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Larry. We can talk for hours together and we can go on, and I'm just being mindful of your time. And just the couple more questions here. In one of the articles, you talk about flow state. What do you mean by a flow state, and how does one go about getting to that flow state?
Okay, so the 5th pillar of Ikigai is being in the here and now, being in this moment. And there's a Hungarian psychologist. He passed away about 2 years ago, and his name is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Don't ask me to spell his name. I'll text you his name.
All right.
But he studied famous people, artists, et cetera, and a common thread was when they were in the middle of their creative work, a very common phenomenon is they lost sense of time. So in other words, if you're a painter and you're working on a painting, you might look up at the clock and say, oh, has 10 minutes passed, but it's been 4 hours. And you're like, what? How is that 4 hours? Well, because your brain was in that state of very intense creativity and focus. Maybe your phone rang while you were working, but you didn't hear it because you were in that moment, in that thing, doing that thing. So I really like this for educational applications, and I say to teachers, this is where I become an educational consultant. If your students are like having very heated arguments about something while they're working on an activity, then you know that they're in that state because they're engaged with each other and they're having very powerful conversations. They're not bored. They're not looking at the clock saying, is class over yet? They're in it. They're in that flow state. So Mr. Csikszentmihalyi noticed this, and he interviewed a lot of people, and he found several other attributes related to flow, which included very intense happiness, feelings of happiness. So when you're in there focused on whatever it is, these are the greatest moments of happiness. So this goes to Ikigai number 4, the joy of small things. So they're related in that way of it's a state of mind. It's where you decide your brain, which part of your brain rules your life. Is it your limbic brain that's full of fear and shame and disgust and trauma and all that stuff, or do you get to your prefrontal cortex, whatever it's called, right, which is creativity and navigation and exploration? And I think through coaching, you help people to get away from here and to get to here. Yeah. And when you get to here, you're learning how to get more into that flow state, into that place where there's happiness, serenity, creativity, where the world is yours, where you can do anything. And when you feel that way, that's I I like that. I like being in that state because I come out and I go, wow, yeah, boy, that was 3 hours, but I feel really good. Your endorphins are going and they're stimulating. You're building your gray matter and all that great stuff that comes with positive uh, psychology, basically.
I like this feeling, Larry. I feel that I'm in that flow state right now. I feel that I've only done only 20 minutes. We are looking at beyond 60 minutes we are now.
Whoops.
Wow. So, Larry, one final question here. What is the impact that you want to have on the world through your coaching?
It's the same as teaching in that sometimes it's hard to see what the impact is down the line. But even if you have a good effect on one person, that person is going to have a good effect on one or maybe two people. And so that, it doubles and it doubles and it doubles.
Mm,
So, life can be hard. Sometimes it feels really short. And in fact, life is very short.
right.
Actually, life is very short.
Very short. Yes.
And I can't believe, I just turned 62. I'm like, really? How does that work? That's crazy. I'm still 21. I mean, men, sorry, men, we're only 12 or 13 years old. We never get older than that.
Right.
So it's really weird to see that. But all right, I see the changes in my body. Look at this stuff. What am I going to do about that? Nothing. It's old. My skin is going to stretch like that. That's just how it is. So let me concern myself with changing other people's lives and helping them to live every day and be grateful. Because really, that's, for me, this is now at this point in my life, it's just be grateful for everything. I've had a lot of great experience in my life. I've traveled to a lot of different countries. I speak more or less 5 different languages, not fluent, but more than one language. And you're from India growing up. You need at least 3 or 4 languages to get around.
I speak 5 languages.
Okay,
Yep.
so but in India that's typical, but in the U.S. it's not. Everybody's
Right.
like English only. Like, nah, don't keep your world so small. Other languages give you different concepts. Anyway, so I like to say to people, the world is a very big place, but it's also a really tiny place. And if you really want to learn about yourself and the power you have to get out of your bubble because you're in a bubble. We're all in a bubble. So actually, my ambition is to pop people's bubbles because
Right.
that's a good thing. That leaves you open to explore and discover and meet other people and learn the good and bad of everywhere. No place is perfect and nobody is perfect, and you are not perfect, and that's great. I think that's it.
Larry, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. And I want to again take a moment to applaud and appreciate the great work that you're doing. And is there anything else at all, Larry, that you want to share that I did not ask?
Um, take one day at a time. I like sports psychology. A story that I tell a lot is really the best way to live is think about how professional athletes do things. So the example I like is a tennis player. A tennis player hits a ball and it goes out the line. Somebody who is not a professional will go, oh man, I am so bad. I'm so bad at this. Whereas a professional will go, okay, I think my elbow is up a little too high. I need to adjust that and just pop that down a little bit the next time I try. So they think about their body and where they were. They don't, they're not down on themselves. They don't punish themselves for getting things out because it's gonna go out from time to time. It's about practicing, as far as sports goes, becoming really good at whatever the technique is. And I think that coaching is all about brain techniques, and it's related to sports psychology, positive psychology, neurophysiology, all of these things. And I really enjoy that because the brain is a pretty amazing thing. But I also know that this limbic brain is kind of our enemy, and it will hold you back if you let it control you. And it wants to control you all the time.
Right, right. And talking about tennis and tennis player, I just played 3 sets of tennis before this interview.
I like playing tennis. I actually used to play tennis a lot with my friend. But I was never good, but I didn't care about that. It's fun running around and swinging a racket. I also like squash and racquetball, but I haven't played these in a long time.
All right, my friend. It's indeed a real privilege and honor to have done this with you. And for all the listeners and viewers, I shall post Larry's page and his profile in our show notes for you. If you want to reach out to him, you can definitely reach out through the link. And Larry, thank you.
You can post my WhatsApp number, and if you want to contact me directly on WhatsApp, that's fine.
All right, that's great. And Larry, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best in your journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I want to congratulate you on this great project. Keep interviewing people, and because you will learn a lot about the world, and I think it's a great project. I'm actually kind of jealous. I think I want to do something similar. Maybe. We'll think about it. Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing from some of you viewers. And I hope I didn't look strange, just my camera's here, but the monitor is behind. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care, my friend. Good
All
luck.
right. Thank you. Bye-bye.